Imagine for a moment that you are standing in the sunlight, but instead of feeling its warmth, you are fixated on the shadow that stretches behind you. The past, like that shadow, is only a reflection of what once was. It has no life of its own. It is only carried forward when you choose to turn toward it, to give it energy, to identify with it as if it were who you are. But you are not your past. You are here, you are now, and the now is untouched by what came before. The mind clings to stories it replays, memories, regrets, mistakes, and old wounds, as if they were happening all over again. It seeks to define you by them, to hold you in place, to convince you that what was will always be. But look closely. Where is this past except in thought? If you do not reach for it, if you do not energize it with your attention, does it exist anywhere but as a fleeting image in your mind? There is a space, a presence within you that has never been harmed, never been burdened, never been shaped by what has happened. It is deeper than thought, untouched by time, unshaken by old identities. When you step into this awareness, the weight of the past begins to dissolve, not because you fight it, but because you no longer mistake it for yourself. The past exists only as a memory, a collection of images, emotions, and interpretations stored in the mind. It is not something tangible, not something that exists in this moment unless you bring it forward with your attention. Like a shadow cast by the body in sunlight, it follows when you turn toward it, but it is never solid, never real in itself. It is only a reflection of what once was, shaped by perception, altered by time, and kept alive only through identification with it. The mind has a way of convincing you that the past is still happening. It replays old stories, repeating thoughts of regret, resentment, guilt, or longing. It brings up moments that no longer exist outside of the mental space where they are being revived. Yet, each time these thoughts arise, they feel real, as if they hold power over who you are now. But who is watching these thoughts? Who is aware of them? There is something within you that sees the past without being bound by it. This is the deeper presence that exists beyond the stories of time. When you look closely, you begin to see that the past is not alive. It does not breathe. It is only a construct of the mind, a series of events that have already passed, stored as imprints in memory. The pain that lingers from past experiences is not coming from the events themselves, but from the way they are being carried forward in thought. If a painful memory arises, it is not the past itself causing suffering, but the mind's attachment to it, the way it is being held onto and replayed. Emotional wounds, regrets, and perceived failures remain heavy only because they are revisited repeatedly. The more attention given to them, the more real they seem. But even the heaviest of burdens is made of nothing more than thoughts. If those thoughts are not engaged with, if they are simply observed without reaction, they begin to lose their weight. They come and go like passing clouds in the sky, unable to define the vastness of the sky itself. The present moment is free from what came before. It has no attachment to past identities, no concern for old narratives. It is fresh, unburdened, untouched by the mind's insistence on carrying the past forward. Yet, the habit of identifying with the past runs deep. It feels familiar almost necessary to hold on to old stories because they have been woven into the sense of self. Without them, who would you be? The answer is not found in thought, but in direct experience. In the stillness of now, without the interference of past narratives, there is a simple yet profound realization. You are here. To see the past for what it is, a shadow, not a reality. You must observe how it arises within the mind. Notice when a memory appears, how it triggers an emotion, how quickly it pulls attention away from the present. But instead of getting lost in it, simply watch. Do not resist, do not analyze, do not engage, just see it. In that seeing, a space opens up, a presence beyond the story. This space has always been there, unnoticed beneath the noise of thought. The mind may insist that the past holds importance, that it must be carried forward, that it defines who you are, but this is only conditioning, a habit formed over time. In truth, nothing from the past has any hold over you unless you allow it. The only power it has is the power you give it through belief and attention. When that attention is withdrawn, when presence takes its place, the illusion begins to fade. From the moment you were born, there has been something within you that remains unchanged. Thoughts have come and gone, emotions have risen and fallen, experiences have shaped the way you see the world, but beneath it all there is an awareness that has remained untouched. This awareness is not defined by the past, nor is it limited by the stories the mind tells. It is always present, always here, beneath the surface of every thought, every memory, and every identity that has been formed over time. The past may seem like an undeniable part of who you are. Mind gathers experiences, creates labels, and forms an identity around them. It says, "This happened to me, and therefore I am this way." It takes past pain, past successes, past failures, and constructs a sense of self from them. But who you are is not found in these mental stories. They are fleeting, impermanent, and constantly shifting. If they were truly who you are, they would never change, yet they do. The thoughts you had 10 years ago are not the same as the ones you have now. The emotions that once seemed overwhelming have faded. The beliefs you once held may no longer resonate. So if all these things can change, how can they be who you truly are? There is a deep freedom in realizing that identity does not have to be tied to the past. The roles you have played, the mistakes you have made, the experiences that shaped your perspective, they do not define the essence of your being. The mind may insist that they do, but if you look closely, you will see that identity is only a mental construct, a collection of conditioned thoughts repeated over time. Beneath this conditioning, there is something far more vast, something that does not need a story to exist. When you stop identifying with the past, a great lightness emerges. The heaviness of carrying old burdens, regrets, and limitations begins to dissolve. The sense of being trapped in old patterns fades, not because you are forcing yourself to forget, but because you are no longer mistaking those patterns for yourself. There is nothing in the past that can define you unless you choose to give it that power. The more you recognize this, the more you begin to see that you are not a fixed entity bound by past experiences, but a living presence that is always fresh, always new. Memories will still arise, and the mind will still try to pull you back into old narratives. This does not mean you have failed or that you must resist. It simply means that the mind is operating in the way it has been conditioned to, but you are not the mind. You are the awareness that notices the thoughts, the presence that watches without attachment. When this is understood, the grip of the past loosens. Thoughts of regret or nostalgia may come, but they do not hold the same weight. They become like passing clouds in the sky, appearing for a moment and then drifting away, unable to disturb the stillness beneath. There is no need to hold on to what was, nor is there a need to create an identity from it. The past is like a book that has already been written. You can revisit its pages, but you are not confined to them. Each moment is a blank page, unburdened by what came before. There is a stillness in realizing this, a quiet peace that arises when the need to carry the past dissolves. It is not about denying what has happened, but about seeing that it does not have to shape what is happening now. The mind is a storyteller. It takes events from the past, weaves them into narratives, and convinces you that they define who you are. It does not just recall memories. It shapes them, alters them, and assigns meaning to them. A simple event from years ago becomes a defining moment, replayed again and again, each time reinforcing an identity tied to it. The mind is not concerned with truth, it is concerned with continuity, with maintaining a sense of self that is based on past experience. It clings to these stories not because they serve you, but because they are familiar. When a thought arises about the past, it is often accompanied by an emotion. The body reacts as if the event is happening all over again. A mistake from years ago resurfaces, and with it comes shame or regret. A painful memory returns, and suddenly the same sadness or anger is felt as if no time has passed. This is the power of identification with thought. The mind does not distinguish between what is happening now and what happened before. It treats thoughts as reality. And so the suffering that belonged to the past is brought into the present moment, not because it still exists, but because it is being relived through the mind's attachment to it. The more a story is repeated, the more real it seems. A person who was once hurt may tell themselves, I am broken. A person who once failed may believe I am not good enough. These thoughts do not just describe the past. They shape the way life is experienced in the present. They create an invisible barrier, a lens through which everything is filtered. Opportunities are ignored. Relationships are approached with fear. And life is lived according to limitations that exist only in thought. But the past itself has no power. It is only a series of memories stored in the mind. The power comes from the attention given to those memories, the belief that they are more than just thoughts. Most suffering is not caused by the past itself, but by the mind's tendency to hold on to it. A person can experience a difficult event, move forward, and never think about it again. Another person can experience the same event and carry it for years, allowing it to shape their identity and influence their decisions. The difference is not in what happened, but in how the mind attaches to the story. Without this attachment, the past loses its weight. It becomes something that once was, rather than something that still is. Breaking free from these mental stories does not mean resisting them or trying to force them away. It means seeing them for what they are, just thoughts, just interpretations, just echoes of something that no longer exists outside of the mind. The moment a painful memory arises, it is possible to simply observe it without identifying with it. Instead of reacting, instead of getting lost in the emotions it brings, there is the option to just watch, to see the thought, to feel the emotion, and to let it pass without clinging to it. In this awareness, there is no struggle, no need to fight against the past. There is only a quiet space, a stillness in which the thought appears and then fades away. The mind will continue to bring up the past because that is what it does. But when there is no longer identification with it, when there is no longer belief that these stories define who you are, they lose their grip. The emotions that once felt overwhelming become lighter. The thoughts that once seemed inescapable become nothing more than passing ripples on the surface of awareness. The past remains what it has always been, a collection of moments that have already come and gone. What remains is this moment, untouched by any story the mind tries to hold on to. The present moment is always here, always available, yet the mind often overlooks it in favor of the past. It clings to old memories, replays past events, and constructs an identity from what has already happened. But no matter how much attention is given to the past, it does not exist outside of thought. It is not something tangible, not something that can be touched or experienced directly. It is only a mental projection, a collection of images, emotions, and interpretations that arise in the mind. The present, on the other hand, is real. It is the only place where life actually unfolds. Yet it is often ignored because the mind is so caught up in what was. There is a stillness in the present moment that cannot be found in the past. The past is noisy, filled with stories, regrets, and expectations that weigh heavily on the mind. It creates an illusion of permanence, as if what happened before determines what happens now. But the truth is, the past has no hold over this moment unless it is given attention. The present is fresh, untouched, free from all that came before. It does not carry the burdens of past mistakes, nor does it hold on to past identities. It simply is, open and vast, waiting to be seen. The mind resists this stillness because it thrives on movement, on stories, on the continuation of old patterns. It brings up past wounds and unfinished emotions, keeping them alive by replaying them over and over again. But these patterns only have power when they are believed in, when they are fed with attention. The moment they are seen for what they are, just thoughts, just passing mental activity, they begin to lose their weight. They no longer dictate the present experience. Instead, they dissolve into the background, revealing the silent space that has always been here beneath them. Awareness of the present moment is not something that needs to be achieved or created. It is already here. It has always been here, beneath the noise of thought, beneath the distractions of the mind. The only reason it is not noticed is because attention is elsewhere. entangled in stories of the past. But the moment awareness shifts from thought to presence, the past loses its grip. What once seemed so important, so heavy, becomes distant, and it is seen as nothing more than a shadow, something that appears but has no substance of its own. This shift in awareness does not require effort. It is not about forcing the mind to stop thinking or trying to escape from the past. It is simply about seeing clearly, seeing that the past is not here, seeing that the only thing that is real is this moment, this breath, this awareness that is always present. There is nothing to change, nothing to fix, nothing to hold on to. The mind may continue to pull toward the past, but when this pull is seen with clarity, it no longer has the same control. It is recognized as just a habit, just a tendency, not something that defines reality. The more this is seen, the more the present moment reveals itself. It is no longer overshadowed by the weight of past experiences. It stands on its own, vast and free, unburdened by what has come before. And within this space, there is a deep peace, a quiet simplicity that has nothing to do with past identities or future worries. It is always here, always waiting, always untouched by the mind's stories. The past may arise in thought, but it cannot touch the depth of what is truly present. There is a space within you that is untouched by time, untouched by memory, untouched by anything that has ever happened. It is not shaped by past experiences, nor is it dependent on future outcomes. It is the silent awareness that has always been present, the formless essence that observes everything, yet remains separate from all that arises and fades. This space is always here, beneath the noise of thought, beneath the weight of identity, beneath the constant pull of past and future. It does not need to be created or found because it has never been lost. It is only obscured by the mind's tendency to cling to stories and distractions. When the past is given attention, it feels as though it defines reality. A painful memory arises, and suddenly emotions from years ago return as if they never left. A mistake resurfaces in thought, and with it comes the same guilt or regret. The mind insists that what happened before still matters, still carries weight, still determines who you are now. But the mind is not an accurate storyteller. It distorts, exaggerates, and filters memories through layers of interpretation. It holds on to past pain not because it is necessary, but because it has been conditioned to do so. This is not a conscious choice, it is simply the mind's nature. Yet beyond the mind, beyond thought, there is something deeper. This deeper awareness is not affected by the past. It does not hold on to regret, resentment, or nostalgia. It is like the sky, vast and open, untouched by the clouds that pass through it. A cloud may appear dark and heavy, but it does not stain the sky. In the same way, past experiences may seem overwhelming, but they do not touch the core of who you are. They are only passing movements in the field of awareness. The only reason they seem to have power is because they are believed in, identified with, and given attention. But when awareness shifts from the stories of the mind to the stillness beneath them, their weight begins to fade. Awareness is freedom because it does not resist or cling, it simply observes. When a painful thought arises, it does not engage with it or push it away. It does not analyze or fight against it. It does seize it, and in that seeing the thought loses its grip. It no longer controls emotions, no longer dictates experience, no longer creates suffering. It is simply noticed and allowed to pass. This is the difference between being lost in thought and being aware of thought. One leads to suffering, the other to freedom. The past may still appear in thought, but awareness does not need to follow it. It does not need to get entangled in its stories. It can simply rest in the present moment, seeing everything that arises without becoming lost in it. This is not a technique or a practice. It is simply a shift in perception, a recognition of what has always been here. No effort is needed, only the willingness to see clearly. There is nothing in the past that has any real hold over this moment. The only thing that keeps it alive is identification with it. But the moment awareness shifts, the illusion begins to fade. The weight of old memories, old emotions, and old identities starts to dissolve. What remains is something vast, something still, something that has never been bound by time. It has always been here, waiting to be noticed, waiting to be recognized as the truth beneath all thought. The past has no power when it is seen for what it is. Just a story the mind tells, a fleeting image that comes and goes, unable to touch the depth of what is real. The past exists only in the mind, appearing as thoughts, images, and emotions that seem to have a reality of their own. But just like a shadow, it has no substance. It is not something solid or unchanging. It is a collection of memories, shaped by perception, altered by time, and held together only by the attention given to it. The mind clings to these shadows, replaying moments that are long gone, believing that they define what is happening now. Yet the past is only as real as the focus placed upon it. Without attention, it fades, just as a shadow disappears when light is turned toward it. When awareness is directed toward the present, the past begins to lose its weight. It no longer dominates experience, no longer dictates emotions, no longer creates an identity that must be carried forward. The mind may still try to pull back into old stories, but in the light of presence, they no longer seem as real, as important, as necessary to hold on to. They are seen for what they are, just thoughts appearing and disappearing in awareness. They do not define anything, they do not control anything, they are simply passing movements in the vast stillness of now. The mind tends to believe that the past has shaped the present in an unchangeable way. It says, because this happened before, this is who I am now. It draws connections between past events and current situations, reinforcing patterns and expectations. Yet, in reality, the past does not dictate what is possible in this moment. Every moment is new, untouched by what came before. The only thing that makes it feel otherwise is the tendency to view the present through the lens of old experiences. But the present does not need to be colored by the past. It can be seen as it truly is, fresh, open, and full of possibility. Light dissolves shadows, not by fighting them, but simply by being present. In the same way, awareness dissolves the illusion of the past, not by trying to erase memories or resist thoughts, but by seeing them clearly. When the mind stops engaging with past narratives, stops feeding them with attention, they naturally begin to fade. There is no need to force anything, no need to struggle to let go. The letting go happens effortlessly when the pull of presence becomes stronger than the pull of thought. Even the deepest wounds and the strongest regrets lose their power when they are no longer revisited over and over again. They may still arise from time to time, but they no longer carry the same weight. They become like distant echoes, faint and fleeting, unable to overshadow what is real in this moment. The more presence is recognized, the more distant the past becomes. It is not denied, not pushed away, but simply no longer given the power to shape what is happening now. The mind believes that it must constantly refer to the past in order to understand life, in order to make sense of the present. But life is not something that needs to be understood through old stories. It is something to be experienced directly, without interference from memory, without filters of old perceptions. The only thing standing in the way of this direct experience is the habit of turning back toward the past instead of facing what is here now. The moment this habit is broken, even for an instant, a profound stillness is revealed. A stillness that has never been touched by time, never been shaped by memory, never been altered by any experience. It has always been here, beneath every thought, waiting to be seen. The past fades naturally when awareness turns toward this light, when presence is recognized as the only reality, when the mind no longer seeks meaning in shadows, but embraces the fullness of what is here. The past is nothing more than a collection of thoughts that arise and dissolve in the mind, like shadows cast by experiences that no longer exist. It has no true substance, no real power, only the meaning and attention given to it. The mind clings to it, weaves stories around it, and forms an identity from it, yet who you are is not bound by what has been. Beneath every thought, beyond every memory, there is a presence that remains untouched, always whole, always here. The moment attention shifts from past narratives to this ever-present awareness, the weight of old experiences begins to dissolve. There is nothing to fix, nothing to change, nothing to resist, only the quiet recognition that life is unfolding now, free and unburdened. The past does not hold you. It never did. Only the mind's attachment to it created the illusion of captivity. But in this moment, in the depth of presence, that illusion fades, revealing the vast and limitless freedom that has always been yours.